Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. The most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
Hi, my name is Carol Shabalala, or simply Carol, the First Lady of Sport.
Hi, my name is Victor Mlife, Ukhoza FM sports presenter.
Hi, my name is Muliki Nseki.
Let's go. This is your radio. Your station.
Hashtag SMS channel.
Hashtag SMS channel.
Hashtag SMS channel.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Azania Mosaka, 702, your number one news and talk station on 92.7 and 106 FM.
Well, thank you for staying with us as we kick off today's masterclass on SAFA. And so many of you have already commented. There's one standout tweet from Teboho, and Teboho says, SAFA. I heard my Zulu friend saying this word and didn't understand until the South African Football Association elections this past weekend. Well, make up what you will. Make up what you will from that statement, but I'll be listening to the masterclass on at Radio 702 with Azania. Well, this past weekend, Danny Jordan was elected South African Football Association president for the second successive term. This happened on Saturday in Sandton. And if you're finding it difficult to make sense of all of this, we're going to attempt to understand and unravel exactly the matters pertaining to this organization and, of course, the important role that they play in our football. And the SAFA elections were concluded this past Saturday, but the incumbent, Danny Jordan, stood unopposed. And he went on to win at just over 95% of the votes. He received 234 of the 246 votes. Two people voted against him, whilst there was one split vote. And the South African Football Association has insisted that the contentious presidential elections were free, fair, and transparent. You'll recall that previously, I think it was on March 24th, that date had to be called off as the process was dogged with dirty politics. There were accusations and counter accusations, and the date was moved back to this this May date that happened this past weekend. And Danny Jordan was reappointed to his job unopposed, and he went up against former referee Andile Ace Ngobo, who pulled out of the race at the last minute, and he claimed that he was threatened with violence by one of SAFA's delegates at the Sandton Convention Centre. And the former referee walked out after a failed attempt to halt the elections a second time. He succeeded the first time, but the second time he failed, and he based his objection on various alleged statute irregularities. And when you look at Bafana, Stuart Baxter has also commented. He said that he believes the acrimonious battles that are going on within SAFA, some of the things leading up to the election and the process has hampered his efforts to appoint a full-time second assistant coach. He believes that the search for a second assistant coach has been affected because there's been this distraction at SAFA and people have been focusing on the elections, and perhaps if we can extend that to focusing on the business of the organization. He's made recommendations, but it's moved along very slowly. And when you look at Bafana, we're actually ranked 72nd in the world. We're sandwiched between Curacao and China, and we're 72nd. And Stuart Baxter's men will be participating in the regional tournament, the COSAFA Cup. And the thing is, elimination from this tournament is not an option, especially when you look at the fact that he's announced an amazing team that's got a lot of people excited. And we didn't get to qualify for Russia. And we also didn't get to qualify for the 2017 Africa Cup of Nations. So can we at least not end up being eliminated or go as far as possible, hopefully win a COSAFA Cup? So we are looking at SAFA this afternoon. Can we possibly hope to turn around the fortunes of South African football if the faces at the top remain the same, largely remain the same. So for this conversation, we're joined by a City Press sports editor, and that is Busiso Mseleku, who is, of course, one of the veterans when it comes to sports journalism in South Africa. It's such a privilege to have you here. Thank you so much.
It is such a privilege to be on your show, on your great show,
Yes.
and to be invited by one of the most beautiful and most intelligent women in South Africa.
Wow. No, the pressure is on. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So let's look at this. Danny Jordan has a fresh 5-year term. Does this signal a new dawn for South African football?
Well, I think it would be a misconception to say it signals a new dawn because he's not a new face. This is his second term. He's been the president then since the elections in 2013. So, and listening to the brief that you just read, the background that you have given, I think the picture that has been given is that it feels like SAFA has hit rock bottom.
Yo.
And if that is the case, then it means it can only move. There's only once you hit rock bottom, there's only one way to move.
Mm-hmm. And you think this election speaks volumes about where SAFA is?
Well, there is a background, also on the background that you gave. It was about how the build up to the elections and what happened on the election day. I think the problem that we have, which I don't think it's only a SAFA problem, but I think it's a South African problem. I think we pay too much focus on individuals.
Right.
Because SAFA is an organization, and it's a structured organization. The president is just an individual. Below the president, there are 4 vice presidents, and then you've got more than 30 members of that form the council. So I think it is very important to look at those and so
not just
one, to answer your question. The brief answer to your question is that it's not a new era, but I certainly think that Danny Jordan, given what he's done in his first term, I think he can only do better in this term.
Right, so we'll look at that. We'll look at some of the achievements, and one would have hoped that it would be an era where gains made after hosting the 2010 World Cup can be extended and recaptured somehow. And because South African football remains trapped in a kind of administrative limbo where fresh faces are very rare, and largely impotent football fans are condemned to just watching the same predictable power plays play out time and time again. And that can be incredibly frustrating because football should be a sport that is with the fans at the center of it.
Yes, it is. But also when you look at our structures, even not only in administration, even on the field of play, we've got, like last night, it was the PSL Awards,
yes.
and we had Tau, who's been a revelation in this. But how many Taus have we produced as a country? We still see those same faces, and how many Ndlovus, the Ndlovu from Spelele Ndlovu from Maritzburg United, that are coming through the ranks. So I think it is indeed an anomaly that we keep on seeing the same faces. But if you look at the national list of the people that were elected into SAFA this past Saturday, I think you'll see a lot of new faces, a number of women who made it, and I think one can only hope, can be positive that
this wave of new faces will continue.
New faces, which are actually much younger than what we have seen.
Yes,
because it has for quite a number of years. It has just been an old boys club with old being intended.
Yeah. So they also released a statement because they had observers present as part of the election, and both the Electoral Committee and the FIFA representatives who attended the election declared the entire process as free and fair and very transparent. And this is, in fact, the reports that they will be submitting to FIFA as a report back. So what do you think? Do you agree with that assessment of how the vote took place?
Look, I think those people are experts when it comes to those matters. But now there's another flip side of the coin that during the Congress, Ace Ngobo, who was challenging Danny Jordan for the presidency,
yes,
he actually walked out of the Congress. So to me, that says that there will be. I don't think he's just an individual. It says that there will be those people who are not happy. But in organizations like SAFA, usually the membership,
yes,
Because there's a point that I usually make that we can, as analysts and critics, we can criticize as much as we can and make suggestions as we are. But the final word comes from the membership. So...
Yes, and the fact that he says that there was intimidation and threats of violence, which is why he walked out or decided not to stand, and there moves as well to nullify this particular vote, and we'll see how far those go. But as you said earlier on, that we have this culture in South Africa of being personality obsessed. Were there substantive issues that were being campaigned on this time around?
Let me tell you, the saddest part is that up to now, we didn't hear anything about football. It was all about individuals. And actually, it became so personal and dirty, that even now, no one, maybe the membership knows, we haven't heard even what is Danny Jordan's manifesto. That what are the things. Well, he spoke to us, the media, soon after being elected on Saturday, and said these were the things that the immediate things that need to be attended to, such as the improvement of women's football, which they are, I think they are still on course with SAFA's Vision 2022 when it comes to women's football. As I said, we've seen a representation of women increase in the national list, and also I think when you look at Banyana, how they've performed much better than their male counterparts. And the number of women coaches in the country, they've improved those numbers. And next year they are launching a national women's league. So I think on those are the things, but there'll be a lot of challenges.
Yes.
And because there's a good point that you've just made, that we're still expecting a challenge for the elections to be nullified. So even that, I think it might be. But I've heard that SAFA has got an NEC meeting on Sunday, this coming Sunday or Saturday, where they are going to chart the way forward.
Right. So you touched on Vision 2022, and we'll come back to some of the objectives and the goals that SAFA has set itself. They're not necessarily maybe Danny Jordan's his own goals. I guess maybe he has to fall in and be the person leading the process to attaining those goals, because there, as you said, 4 vice presidents and 30 members.
Well, the buck stops with him as president. Yeah.
So let's look at this process of what that structure looks like. So within SAFA, the 4 vice presidents, then the 30 members, and then you have all of these other delegates who get to participate in this voting process. How do they get to have this voting power?
Well, they get elected. Football is it's as we say, it's got SAFA has got 52 regions, and below the regions they are. Below the 52 regions, then you've got local football associations. So usually the people get elected from what they call grassroots structures, and that's how you make it up to get into the national list.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is how it is. That is how it happens.
Right. Okay. And what does this do then to the centers of power, where power resides within the organization?
Okay, I'm glad you brought up that question. There is a confusion that I usually pick up, and unfortunately, it even happens between us, the Fourth Estate. You find that people don't differentiate between the SAFA leadership, and the SAFA administration. They just lump it all. There is the leadership, which is led by the president. And the president and his vice presidents, as well as the NEC, the National Executive Committee, as well as the council. The council is the highest decision-making body in congresses, and the NEC is the highest decision-making body between congresses. And then you've got the 4 vice presidents, and then the president.
Right.
And then you've got the administration, which is led by the CEO, which is in charge of day-to-day running of the organization.
Yes.
So just to help us, because the question that I was told that I'll be addressing today is what is SAFA's mandate?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. When you go through there, you find their mission statement. SAFA's mission statement, and let me read it out to you. It says, the South African Football Association, as the governing body of football in South Africa, is committed to, 1, promoting and facilitating the development of football through infrastructure and training initiatives. 2, engaging in a proactive dialogue with the government to generate a partnership in recognition of football as a national asset. 3, creating an image as being a stable, progressive, and innovative institution.
Yeah.
So I think given that, we can then judge and say whether
or not.
Because I think that just spells out what is SAFA's mandate.
A couple of SMSs and WhatsApps. One says, surely SAFA and masterclass is a misnomer, perhaps low class and SAFA. Oh, you're being so naughty. And then another one says, as a SAFA will never function properly until we have wholesale change at management level, and it's rotten, period. That one comes from Moshere. So you can also get in touch with us as we unpack, as we look at how this organization functions, because it is responsible for different properties. It is also responsible for the national sides of this country. And when you look at the fact that we failed to qualify for the 2017 African Cup of Nations, for the World Cup, and the fact that it has become so political and it's been so much about the personalities, it only stands to reason that football will suffer. The quality of the football in this country may suffer. So we'll take your calls on 011-883-0702, 31702 for your SMSs. Yes, excuse the pun, SAFA. And we'll take your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702.
It's not just a walk, it's an adventure for the senses, a feast of color for the eyes, and a sense of freedom for the soul. It's not just a walk, it's a sense of belonging, a movement to unite, and a celebration of our country. It's not just a walk, it's the 2018 MTN Walk the Talk with 702 on Sunday, 22 July. Bring your family, friends, neighbors, and colleagues as we unite and walk for South Africa. Entries are limited, so don't delay. The MTN Walk the Talk with 702. Everywhere you go. Proudly hosted by the City of Joburg. More info on walkthetalk.co.za.
Kandua.com is just what you need to find that perfect someone to do all those home fixes. Think of it as a dating site, but for some services like pools, plumbing, plastering, and painting. Get matched up with potential suitors who are all vetted and verified, reviewed and rated. Kitchen, lounge, bathroom, bed. See for yourself. Go to Kandua.com. Get quotes and get your repairs and renovations done just the way you love it. Hook yourself up with Kandua.com. That's Kandua.com.
I don't live for money. I live for growth. The go big or go home kind of growth that allows me to expand and take my family places. For me, that's the only growth worth investing in.
Get what you live for with a Nedbank fixed deposit. You get a great rate of up to 10.69%, pay no monthly fees or commissions, and your capital is fully guaranteed. So you get the growth you live for. Another way we get your money to back you. Save, invest, and grow today with Nedbank. We're an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply. See money differently. Nedbank.
Yours is a season of soil, seed, clippers and spades. The smell of wet earth and celebration that follows every drop of rain. Because you don't just want fresh veggies, you're growing your own. That's why you come to us. At Builders, we're happy to help. And you get the best deals on the widest range of quality products. Yeah, we know, you're not just a doer, you're a builder. Get to Builders, get it done.
702 Masterclass.
Well, it's 26 minutes past 2 and we continue our masterclass on the South African Football Association, which had its presidential elections this past Saturday at the Sandton Convention Centre. Mike, you're calling from Emerentia. What are your comments?
Okay, I don't think with this guy, in charge, we as the country, or as the football, is concerned. We're not going anywhere because, this guy's got so many scandals. If you remember the name Pereira, Carlos Santana. And now it's the same guy who's been tackling, bringing Stuart Baxter back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I can't remember when the last time or when this guy has been in charge and we ever, produced anything or performed well as the national team.
Mm-hmm.
I think since he took over the office, the national team is declining. He's going down big and fast, He's a politician. I don't think he's good at football.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, that guy's got so many scandals. Like, he's not good. Like, Pereira, just imagine. He brought in Pereira was earning more than the president.
Yes, remember that. I remember it clearly. Let me get my guests' thoughts on that. There is a reputation crisis, whether for Danny Jordan or for SAFA.
Well, there is. And I think one of the biggest challenges that he faces is to clean up the image. He's got challenges, personal challenges himself. And also the organization, as you could hear from all the messages that we've been getting, that no one is taking SAFA seriously, and no one has got confidence in SAFA. People view SAFA as an organization that is in tatters. So I think one of the first challenges that Danny Jordan needs to face up and see how he can do is to polish up is to clean up the image of himself and that of the organization.
Yes.
But also another thing, I think sometimes we need to stick to facts. And when we talk about Bafana, I don't think we can apportion all the blame to Danny, because Bafana have been on a decline for quite a long time. And Danny has only been a president since 2013. Just like the last caller, the coaches that he mentions, Pereira and Santana, Carlos Santana.
Yes.
Danny was not the president then at the time. Those that were appointed. Actually, he was during when Pereira was appointed. Danny was the CEO of the 2010 FIFA World Cup Local Organizing Committee. Mm-hmm. So I think we must not mix. There are things that he's got his failures, he has got his achievements, but then I think we can't just lump everything
on him.
But
I guess it falls on the doorstep of the body overall.
Yes,
but
what I'm saying is
the appeal then? What is the appeal? What is his power?
What is the appeal?
His power, yes, because he's been voted again for a successive year.
Well, currently, I think, I had to some time during the build-up to the elections, one of the comments that was made by Ace Ngobo, which I'll paraphrase, I can't remember exactly verbatim, but what he said was that we cannot dwell on the previous successes, what one has done, in the past. Because there was a time when he was CEO of SAFA, and he was attributed, one of the attributes was that he brought a number of sponsors to the organization. And I think he did well also as the CEO of both the FIFA 2006 World Cup bid committee and the 2010 bid committee, which eventually won the rights to host the World Cup, and then he became the CEO of the local organizing committee. So I think those were his achievements, and I think his elevation to becoming the president by those who voted for him, right, I think were based on those previous achievements.
Exactly. And when you talk about sponsors, when we come back from the headlines and the break, we'll look at the commercial architecture of the South African game. Is SAFA cash flush?
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
Masterclass.
It's 25 minutes to 3, and thank you for staying with us. We continue our masterclass on the South African Football Association, SAFA, and we're joined by a veteran sports journalist, the sports editor at City Press, that's Mseleku. He's been giving us a great guide to the structure of this organization, its mandate, what they're tasked to do, and of course getting opinion on whether or not they are achieving the objectives they've set out for themselves. Now, let's look at the commercial architecture of the South African football game. And there is also a question that's come up about the money trail. Let me read it out quickly. And it says, as a matter of urgency, we want to know the paper trail of money spent in SAFA. What happened to the money they got from FIFA? Money better spent will see us attend things like the World Cup. So when you look at this particular question, that money, in fact, was intended on delivering a much more streamlined organization and, of course, deliver on those objectives you mentioned. The FIFA money particularly.
Yep. Yeah. When you look at before you went on the break, you said, is SAFA cash flush?
Cash flush, yes, because then we have to look at the kind of commercial or the properties that they have.
I wonder whether that word can be used, that SAFA is cash flush. Because SAFA is actually not a money, it's not supposed to be a money-making business or
entity,
entity. But when you look in the history over the years, for many years, they've been a few years in between when they have reported a surplus or a profit. In a business, it would be called a profit, but they call it a surplus.
Yes.
And when you look at the 2 years in their 2 years ago, in their books, they reported a 45 million rand loss. And in their last financial report, they reported a 23 million rand surplus, which at the time, both the president and the CFO, Mr. Kronishluyo, said it was a result, and also the chairperson of the finance committee of SAFA. They said it was a result of a turnaround strategy that had been designed after the new leadership came in to office in 2013.
I see.
So now, when you look at that. We did receive a lot of money from the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, and that money was ring-fenced to be used for development.
Right.
And many people, for years in this country, we have been complaining about development. But now, when you talk to SAFA right now, and I can tell you now that the fact that Bafana are doing so badly, ranked as low as they are.
Yes.
Having failed to qualify for Africa Cup of Nations and having failed to qualify for the World Cup since 2002, which was the last one they qualified for, because 2010 we played because we were the host.
The host, yeah.
So SAFA is usually judged according to the performance of Bafana. And that is, I think that has been dismal.
Right, because the thing is, they earn rights, or rather, they earn revenue. One of the main ways is through the sale of broadcast rights, and of course, having sponsors flocking in as a result of maybe products being shown, television and merchandising and so on. And a lot of other, and there's a question here as well about comparatively, if we look at other leagues and how they operate, and the way SAFA operates, and where the money comes from, because the main property is Bafana, and the others aren't as profitable when you look at how it's made up. Yes, we have the women's teams, and then we have the all under 21, under 23, under 17, and so on, and then men's beach football, blah, blah, blah. Those aren't the bigger properties.
Yes. Commercial properties.
Commercial.
Yeah, I saw that question on the questions that Jonathan sent to me, which is about like structural organizations like the English FA, which runs the main competition.
The FA Cup, yeah.
The FA Cup. You know, it is strange. You know, way before I even became a journalist, one of the journalists I respect the most, Mr. Sekula Sillo, he wrote an article in, I think it was in Drum magazine, and he was describing the relationship between the South African National Football Association, which was like, during those days, it was like the black SAFA, let's say that.
Yes.
And then the National Professional Soccer, the NPSL. And he said the relationship that they have was that of a tail wagging the dog. And I think that has not changed much. So the person who wrote the question about the Nedbank Cup is our FA Cup.
Right.
Whereas in England, the FA Cup is run by the Football Association, you know. It's not like a Premier League asset. So there is an attempt here. In one of the plans that SAFA has is to introduce a national cup So it's like, because at the moment it's the Nedbank Cup that plays that role. That is like the FA Cup of South Africa, but it is not run by SAFA.
Yes, in fact,
it's one of the competitions that where SAFA is supposed to be getting commercial rights.
Right,
and I think there's a move towards that, and it might be too little, too late, and people might learn. And going back to the point I was trying to make earlier on of Bafana doing very badly. But if you look at the one of the Vision 2022 that SAFA came up with in 2013, I think it has been it has had a positive effect on development and on the junior teams, because for the first time we've had our junior teams, the under 17s. They made it to the FIFA Under 17 World Cup, both in 2015 and in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
The Under 20, SA Under 20 national team, I traveled with them actually to South Korea last year for the FIFA World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Banyana, the Under 23 team, they've made it to the last two successive Olympic Games. The Under 23s, our Under 23s, were at the Olympic Games in Brazil.
Right.
So I think maybe that might address one of the questions that we've had in the past when it comes to development, that one of the mistakes that have been done in the past was trying to build the house from the roof. I doubt that you can have a successful
yes.
Bafana without having a proper development program and a good number of players coming out from the junior national teams.
Okay.
But I think that will lead to another question now. That how good is the monitoring of the players that are coming
from a
through?
young age? Absolutely. And they launched something called My SAFA, which allows this tracking, of players along the way. We'll come back to that. Let's go to Rama, who's listening in from Soshanguve. Hello, Rama.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Sharp. Azania, look, the issue that I'm grappling to settle with is the whole leadership. How do we say he deserves the second term when we have, like who has indicated, we have the national team of the Banyana, and we have the under 17, all of those. Whereas we don't have professional league. Where do we get these players from, and how do we do that?
Right.
How is it possible? Then, if it is not tempting to say there are a lot of potential or capable players who are left out there because there are no structures that are present and operational that from which this professional or this national squad players are selected from.
All right.
And who brings them in?
Right.
Is that not a maladministration of some sort?
All right.
To the assembling of the squad.
All right, Rama, thank you for that point. In fact, I just want to get through some of the messages that speak to the area of the conversation that we're in right now. One says, good afternoon, Azania. Football is a mess. We have two bodies, PSL and SAFA, running our football. Ideally, we should have one body like in the UK, Italy, Spain, but we have two egomaniacs in Koza and Jordan who have been in control for more than 15 years. Our football is not going to improve. That's X in the East Strand. Another one on Twitter, in fact, reflecting a similar point from Sbudas Tole says, could you please ask Abuti Sbu to give us a few examples of other football structures in the world and if they're as cluttered when it comes to tiers of leadership? So Rama suggesting that where is the relationship perhaps with the PSL, because the PSL is that place where these players that play within SAFA mandated tournaments and so on, that's where they come from.
Yeah. It is the relationship between the two organizations. It actually does need a lot of fixing. And they I don't know, they have been like even, they do have a joint liaison committee that is supposed to structure how how the calendar is worked out, so that we don't have this problem that we usually have of club versus country, those issues. And as the other caller said, it It is very difficult in South Africa the way it is, because if you look at our ABSA Premiership, which is the top league, the professional league, our clubs are quite good. The Mamelodi Sundowns actually even won. They won the Africa Champions League. But you look at the players that were. The number of foreign players that were in that team that won that cup, because now the national coach, he gets his players from the Premier Soccer League players, and it must be local players or players. So I think really there is a need for our football structures right from the top, to try to coordinate them in a way that they are in synergy.
Right.
And I think currently that is lacking.
Let's go back to this question of development, because it is one, you talked about the performance of the various other teams and building this house from the roof historically, which seems to be what we were focused on. But previously, Danny Jordan had promised 9 satellite academies when he was campaigning for elections the last time, and he only managed to deliver on 3. So the importance of these structures on the ground, and even football in schools, when you look at the pipeline for sporting codes like cricket and rugby, and how there is this clear progression, we don't seem to be seeing that with football. How would you score SAFA on its development programs?
Azania, you are very, very correct there. I was actually looking at here, I think, you are right about the academies. I was looking at a presentation here that Danny Jordan did last year on the 12th of December. And he spoke about the targets, and on the academies, the target of Vision 2022 was to develop 9 provincial academies, 1 per province.
Yes.
And actually he did say that on the report it does say that there are only 3 at the moment that were, and there were negotiations with 1 in the Western Cape and 1 in Free State. So they were in negotiations with those. So I think they've with the Vision 2022 we are now in 2018,
just 4 years away.
So it seems like they've fallen short. That maybe they will need to fast track that process. And recently, I don't know how many people followed this. There was a very disturbing report on football academies around the country, and actually stemming from that report on one of the SAPC's investigative shows,
the abuse that happened in Protea.
There has been some arrests, and also there has been some suicide. Somebody who was implicated committed suicide. And I think that report, it painted a very terrible picture. And I think it must have served as a wake-up call for SAFA that they really, really need to look at the academies. And I think we need to develop a licensing, a very stringent licensing process whereby every academy should be registered with SAFA.
Absolutely, so that you don't have this kind of exploitation and abuse that goes on.
So on that one, as you say, on Vision 2022, I think they are far behind the targets they set for themselves.
And I was looking at it, and it sounds really great. They have they say that they want to rebuild structures of SAFA at all levels to create the conditions that will bring about the sustained international success of our national teams. So when you acknowledge that you need to rebuild, it suggests that there has been this degradation and erosion of structures previously. It's an acknowledgement of failures.
Yeah, it is. It is an acknowledgement, and I think actually on several public platforms, Danny Jordan has admitted that, more especially when it comes to Bafana, that there really need to be a rethink, because it doesn't seem that our system is working. We have failed Bafana, and when we looked at the lofty targets that they've set for Bafana being ranked number 3 on the African continent and number 11 in the world, I think
yes, coming from 72nd to 11th.
It shows that there's a long, arduous steep road ahead.
I think that's an understatement of what would need to happen for us to achieve that. I thought it was not laughable, not that we can't do it per se, but with the track record that we have, it would really take a sort of miracle. And one of the goals is to strengthen women's football significantly. What score would you give SAFA on its performance in supporting women's football? Earlier you talked of plans to create a national league for women's football.
Well, I think they have done well on that score. But it's maybe that it's not out there. And also another thing, I don't know if I can use this term, I don't know how. Women's football is not very sexy.
Does it have to be? Why does it have to be sexy?
What I'm saying,
not require.
what I'm saying, I'm not, I don't know, maybe it's a wrong term to use, but what I'm saying is that it's not attractive to sponsors, and as you can see, there's only one major sponsor, that is Sasol, which sponsors Banyana Banyana. But when you look at also going back to that presentation, there was an idea of how to improve women's football, and they have managed to. Most of the local football associations now, local football associations, they used to have just leagues for male players. And now SAFA has insisted that for every age group that plays under the local football, from under 13s upwards, there must be 2 leagues.
Wow.
Must be. You can't have just a male only.
And what about the clubs?
And the clubs.
Well, I mean that would be a PSL.
The clubs.
Decision.
There are some clubs that do have ladies teams. I know the Mamelodi Sundowns have had a very successful ladies team over the years. Bloemfontein Celtic are doing very, very well with their ladies team, but also there there's very slow progress. But also the SAFA has developed a number of women coaches. who have received very high certificates in coaching. Hence, as a result, because one of the ideas was that all the women's team, now all our women national teams from Banyana downwards up to the under 17,
yes,
they are being coached, but they've got women coaches with Desiree Ellis having been appointed last year permanently as Banyana coach.
Yes, so long-awaited decision. Let's hear from Romeo in Vosloorus. Hi, Romeo.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine, and your guest as well. I wanted to find out what other things that SAFA is doing in collaboration together with the Premier League as well to accommodate an insurance for the players, especially when it comes to their age. Because at the end of the day, you hear some stories, and hey, he was a great player, this one, but you find that his life is not in good shape and it does not show anything. Because look, these players, they are making us proud. You know, they are our real heroes. In as good as like people here in the liberation struggle, their aim was to liberate everybody, including also those players. When they go, they represent everybody. They don't represent their family.
Yeah.
What SAFA are they have in place to accommodate and give insurance, especially women as well? Right. Because remember, the duration of women is very short.
Yeah.
Could be maybe about 27 years, and she's already done, maybe she's now focused on marriage or thinking about business.
Yeah.
What are you doing about that?
Romeo, thank you very much. Is this really the responsibility of SAFA, or is it at club level? What do you think of this issue of supporting players, especially beyond retirement?
That is a grey area.
Yeah.
There's serious grey area that has been addressed, that has been talked about for over the years, because whose responsibility is it?
Right.
I know right now the PSL has started having some seminars that they give to players, and there is also another gentleman here that I was just communicating with after seeing an article that he wrote on Facebook about what he was doing. He's a former football administrator, what he was doing towards trying to equip players about that.
Right.
And also SAFA, but now it's a grey area because you don't know whether it's the PSL or it's individual clubs, or it is SAFA's duty to do that? Because SAFA on their side, I think they've tried to rope in a few former players. Like you remember Sheikh Mashaba, a former player, was once the national coach. There is Neil Tovey, who is the
Dr. Kumalos, the Tebogomulois of this world.
Yes,
to stay within the structures.
We have become coaches. But I think this is something that actually, if personally, I think these are the kind of things that need to be in life skills must be incorporated from academy level, an academy level, that our players, we don't only polish their soccer playing skills, but also their life skills.
Absolutely. Right. We're done with the conversation, but a few more SMSs that have come in. FIFA, UEFA, CAF, SAFA, and almost universally all other football associations are rotten to the core. Too much money in the sport and greed and self-serving bigots run the sport for their own selfish greed and serving the sport. Ask him where 750 million rand from 2010 FIFA games. That comes from Dave. That's his comment. Another one says, Danny needs to step down until these charges are dropped or until that case is concluded. It's disgusting that football has turned a blind eye to a very legitimate police station charge. Another one says, isn't it hysterical? Seems like saying football in South Africa will suffer is a pun, but it's not, but it actually isn't. As things stand, SAFA should change their name to SAFA. It makes a lot of sense. That comes from Colin. Thank you so much, Ntate Mseleku, for guiding us through some of the important issues pertaining to the South African Football Association.
Azania, you are welcome.
Thank you.
Football is a sport of opinions, and I think an hour is not enough.
Yes, I know. We talk about it all day long.
Actually, maybe football should have its own 3-hour show.
I will talk all day. Thank you.
You're welcome.